Uh, Thank you for attending today's presentation. So I think it's really appreciate Victor. Yeah, Victor, I think so we used to organize several IEEE ComSat meetings like the GlobalCon I think GlobalCon 2015, and also we have another one called ICC in Denver 2024. So I think it's I think the local chapter is sponsor that that event. I really appreciate spend time here. So I think for the topic I'm trying to address here is there's several, I think it's new areas for optics, right? So I think pluggable and CPO right now for last 3 years is it's a very hot topic. I think the industry put a lot of efforts, a lot of investments, right, to put in the CPO area. I think the one major issue here is that we try to see, right, what is hype, what is the reality, right? So what the industry is going. So I think most important thing, right? So because of the COVID, so I think it's the bandwidth requirements, right? Because most people work at home. So the bandwidth requirements are very strong. So I think COVID definitely did not slow down the bandwidth demand. So that's one part of the reason, right? So we're talking about CPO, right? So it's for last 2 years, especially, why can I go next page? We is okay now. I think it's the pluggable and the CPO mainly because our current materials both kind of performance limit. For example, the previously, right, we go to 1D, 10D, and 100D, right? So the bandwidth kept going up. Somewhere, right, the material starting to hit the wall, right? So that's part of the reason want the industry try to resolve. So I put it probably like a significant time, right, to address what is the pluggable, what is the PCO, CPO, what problem they try to resolve, right? And another thing, right, I want to give some ideas because this topic, when I talk with the workers to try to see, right, what's new in the optics, right? That's since like since the COVID, so the many new optical platforms, right, comes out. So it covers other areas like the fronthaul, access, right, optic transport, and of course, right, there's some like future data center optics. Okay, so first of all, I gave like 2 to 3 minutes talking about our company. So I think I'm not sure everybody know that, but our company is kind of just close here. So it's in close to Calabasas. So I think it's the company headquarters in West Hills, and we have office definitely in San Jose. So I think we have 2 main R&D sites. One is in Chengdu, so that is our transceiver R&D, and we also have a Taiwan team. So currently, because the US and China, that's tariff issues, right? So all our shippings to US market right now is changed to Taiwan. So China Chengdu facilities take care of all the like China customers, and outside China take care by Taiwan. Another thing I want to mention here, we have 2 fabs. So basically, we produce our own laser chips. You see, like Jintan is one in China, it's very close to Jiangsu, Changzhou. And we have another one in Taiwan. Taiwan is mainly doing higher speed lasers. So then we have 2 sites in Taiwan, like Hsinchu. I think it's from the company-wise, we produce all the laser chip components, the optical assemblies and transceivers. So we buy electronics from outside. So, and currently, I did not list all our customers. So we have global customers. Question? Yeah.
When you say optical chips, are you talking about the silicon photonics chips?
No, I'm talking about like lasers, photodiodes, right? We do also do silicon photonics design, but we don't have a fab for that. Okay.
So this is more traditional.
Yeah. I think it's for the markets, right? I think it's for optics, right? We take care of like 4 major areas. The company is doing very strong in optical transmission. For example, you connect base station to base station. We also do data centers, right? For example, inside data centers, anything more than like 10 meters, right? We use optical. So we call the connectivities. And in the same time, right, work on the broadband, right? That is mainly the passive optical networks, and also work on the wireless. Wireless means, right, from antenna to the center office, right? So that kind of a connection, like fronthaul, midhaul, and backhauls. I think this gives some ideas, right? What do we do, for example? The company exists for I think it's over 20 years. So, and initially the company is pretty big. I think it's pretty much like top 5 optic company doing the PON access. So we produce like all the EPON stuff. And starting from 2014, 2015, the company started doing like go to the data center market. We started doing like you see there is the 180 LR4, right? That is we still dominate the 180 LR4 markets. So we probably have 40% market shares working, for example, for the 10 kilometers, 180 connections. Beyond that, I think it's the after 180. So the 10 GPON going takeoff, right? We do the SPF and also the 10 GPON OLT, that kind of products. In the meantime, right, we started to 480 PLSFET module that's supposed to support, for example, the data centers of optic transmissions. And beyond that, you can see there, right? So we have pretty much all the PAM4 based transceivers. I think the industry, right, from last 10 years, that major change from like the AR signal, right, 1010 goes to like PAM4 signals, like 4 levels, from 2 levels to 4 levels. So that is fundamental change. So I think it's currently the most transceiver modules, right, based on PAM4, like 4 level kind of modulation. I think currently we are doing pretty good for the 800G. So we have like pretty much like 50 customers, right? Qualify our 800G module. And also we starting doing 1.6T next year because the value is increased. Any questions on the online?
No, actually, that was why.
Okay. Sorry. I think it's our companies we call the vertical integration model. What vertical integration model means? We produce our own laser chip. We have our either certified fab. We have the MOCVD cameras, right? So for all the DFB and the EMLs, also the PIN APDs. Recently, we started doing the optical. We call it semiconductor optical amplifier chip. So that's the laser chip we're talking about. In the meantime, right? So since we have the chip, we also do the optical sampling with all the TODA, RODA, right? Two kinds. It's built in-house. And also from the module side, right? Once we have the optical sub-assembly, we build them together, make the transceiver, right? All different transceivers, right? Like there's so many different form factors. Our capacity, our capacity right now for module level more like this is the 8.5 is from last year. Well, right now we're more like 9 to 2 million per year. That kind of module capacity. And our laser chips, right, going to like close to right now close to like 50 million and for 30 million per year for the laser chip or the photo die. So that's company situation, and we are kind of a 300 million company. Yeah.
What is OSA?
Optical. No. Optical assembly, optical system assembly, something like that. Yeah.
Optical system.
Yeah, something like that. For example, if you have the laser chip, you put on transmitter, right? They're called the TX OSA, right? Yeah, optical assembly.
TIA and all that.
Right. Yeah. The RODA, TODA, right? It's the typical things. Yeah. I think it's the company-wise, we are kind of like 280 or 300 million company we mentioned, right? But 1,500 people kind of a size. Okay, so I think it's the major topic I want to mention today is about pluggables with CPOs, right? Because I think the CPO idea will probably last like next 10 years. So I think the topic we try to say like those next 3, 4, 5 years, this is probably one thing. If you check from all the optical conference, right? Even talk about the related investments. This word always comes out because so much investment for in this area. One thing I want to mention why it happened this way. Currently, right? So we know, right, from the industry standpoint, right? We have a transition telecom companies, right? We call the CIP, right? Communication service providers, like Verizon, AT&T, right? Those kind of companies. They typically work for like telephones, right? For long haul transmissions. Only recently, like recent 10 years, we're starting to see like Google, like Apple, like Amazon, those kind of companies starting to dominate the optics. I'm trying to say here, right? The ICP means internet content providers, right? For example, like Facebook, like Google, right? They provide all the online streaming search engines, right? Those kind of operators, right? If you see that the optics, they're spending on optics. Initially, right, the telecom dominate everything, right? Telecom say this is pretty much like 10 years ago, right? You have to work with the companies associated with Verizon. But currently, if you want to optics, the most spending, right, comes from like Google, those kind of companies. They spend a lot of money to buy optics. So you see, right, the spending is growing every year. So currently, I think it's probably people think, right, either this year or will be a little bit like the next quarter will be the crossover. So the spending for the optics, right, for the internet companies, right, so will be like exceeding the traditional telecoms. So that's why I think it's I think the money going this area. Try to see the growth, right? Because a lot of companies, if I grow my business, where is the growth, right, for the markets? So this is this is one example shows how the data center was organized. Previously, right, if you check here, so that 100G, right, this is probably starting 2014, and currently, right, doing 200G, 400G. For example, like Facebook, they are buying like 200G modules right now, right? Probably like 3-4 millions per year, right? Like Google probably they also talk about like 1 to 2 millions, right? Doing the 2x400G modules. So and also because the data centers have distance difference, right? So you want to connect it between data centers, right? Like several kilometers. You want to also connect like in the same data center, right? Different floors, right? From the first floor to second floor, right? For different between buildings, and also you want to connect it like within the same floor, right? So that's different distance requirements. So you want to cover pretty much like from 1 meter to probably like several kilometers, right, within this. And if you want to connect the data centers, right, from one city to another city, right, that would be leverage the long haul optics.
Bless you.
Question? Okay, I think it's also for these connections, right, inside the data centers, they count on, they call the switch. Basically, I have a lot, for example, each larger data centers, right, probably have like millions of servers, right? They connect all the servers into like the access switch, and then all the access switch connect with like called the span switch, the leaf switch, I'm sorry, and all the leaf switch connected to the span, and then goes to the core router, and the core router will go to another. Go to long haul, go to another data center for another location, right? So that kind of connections right now for data centers. And what one want to say, right? What is driving right now?
It's pretty fun. Yeah, we ate pizza, cookies, and then yeah, Costco pizza. Yeah, you should have.
Okay.
Hey, Miles, your mic is 500 meters out.
Yeah, I think currently, right? So because COVID, definitely it's another driver, right? For the bandwidth driver, you want to see here on the key things, right? Drive the optics in that. For example, current applications, right? For the telecom, still driving more optics because in the telecom area. So because they're still showing like 10%, 20% grown the rapid growth year over year, and also of course, right, cost also go down like 10%, 20% year over year. So that's one of the areas. The two things driven directly by the data centers. For example, the cost, the power, right? For the data center stuff, especially sometimes talk about latencies. Another thing is the AI and machine learning, right? Because AI and machine learning, so cloud companies spend a lot of investment in that area. For example, like Facebook starting doing like they call the metaverse, right? This kind of part of the AI world. So one thing I want to mention here clearly. So if you check the power distribution inside the data centers, there's still like the big chunk of the power comes from servers, right? Once the data center is built, pretty much like it's the electricity bill, right? It's a big deal. So if you want to reduce your electricity bill, you will see which area, right? You want to improve the energy efficiency. For example, server definitely is going pretty dominant. But the networking side means the switches, right? How much the power consumed by the switches. Currently, because bandwidth is going higher and higher. So once you go to like, for example, if you go to 400G, you are starting 10%. But if you go to 800G, right, you are starting to see like 20% of the 27% of the energy come from the switching, right? So then I think it's, for example, the Google, Facebook, those kind of companies starting to give pressure to suppliers, right? How we can reduce your power, because I spend too much money on the paying the electricity bill for the switches, right? So that kind of that one things that comes out, and also
Right. I'm having a little bit of trouble understanding the right hand graph. On the bottom, it seems to say that essentially your link. So for the power consumed by your link, by your network is about 10 to 20%, maybe 20. It goes with your bandwidth, right?
Yeah. So but you see the bottom one, right? Showing that, for example, for the one for the inside of the data centers, right? Mostly servers, right? For example, large data centers have like millions of servers, right? So server will definitely dominate, right? To consume the powers, right? Yeah. So that's the thing. But beyond the servers, you have switches, right? The orange one showing this, I mean, the networking switches.
Okay. But the upper curve, what is the cluster power? Is that the total switch?
That's more the upper more like for servers. But if you talk about servers, what is taking the assumption, the power consumption? Okay. Basically, right? If the server stay there, right, a low power mode, for example, that's probably not. But if you keep doing sending data, right, doing play like movies, play whatever, right, right, that will make the processor works harder. That's what it means, right? So it's the cluster power. That's what it means. Yes.
Yeah. Right. So the one on the top shows like different type of processors. You have Google CPU, and then Intel. The Intel seems to take a lot less server power because it's not transmitting as much data. There's less data throughput.
Yes, it kind of related to that. It basically depends how big they are for your servers, right? Once it's very busy, then your processor will work harder, right? That's what that means. Okay, I think it's because we are working on the most networking, right? That's what we will do, right? That's also some like some other company work on servers, right? Focus the other area of the power consumption reduction. Okay, so I gave you the idea here is what is the optics we were talking about, right? Inside of the inside data centers. For example, initially, right, like 20 years ago, I think we work on like 1G, 2.5 gig, right? We call it SIP plus module, called SIP module. And then later, right, we started migrate to 10G, right, called SIP plus. And then right now we're starting like 40 gig based on 4x10, 100 gig based on like 4x25, 200 gig based on 4x50. Starting with 100 gig, that's starting to see the time fall. Basically, from 100 to 200 gig, the exact same optics, but you change the modulation scheme from NRZ to PAM4, so you're starting double the bandwidth. And beyond that, right, the current like 400 is starting to do sleeping like last year. I think, for example, Amazon probably have like a million units for this year, right? So and also 800G, 1.6T, and starting from 1.6T, people think about maybe that's how the TPO comes out. What I want to say here, right? You see the energy per bit. So that is the factors, right? For talking about why TPO becomes a play. For example, if I do 800G modules, my like power like 800G, right? It's 16 watts per module. If you calculate the so that's about 20 picojoule per bit. So if I want to keep going to reduce that, so that's pretty harder if you're talking about using the standard way to doing the transceivers. That's why I say I can do a CPO. I take out the DSP, so then I can go lower, right? That is the CPO try to claim right now. So I think it's since we're focusing on networking, right? So this is showing what is the switch speed. It's basically the switch root map. If you see here, every 2 years, the switch capacity will double. For example, from 2022, right? We started doing 25.6. This is currently I think the switch speed where I think the market is doing the volume production. So right now, right, if you're talking about most companies just starting doing like 51.2T. So that's kind of speed, right, for the networking to keep increasing the speed. Basically, right, your speed goes up, your cost probably is going up, but it will not double. So that in that situation, you save power to the customer. So save cost to customer. Yeah.
Your definition of switch to capacity is the number of lanes multiplied by the
total. For example, the dominated chip there is Broadcom, right? Broadcom like Tomahawk, right? So that's what you say. How much the main capacity for the chip?
Yeah.
Right. For example, I can come in like a 25G at 25, right? So that's the chip capacity.
The challenges and complexity of the optical connections to CPO switches, does it affect it elevate any quality that just continuously sending data? Does it affect does it have any effect of sending data error as you're sending? But because of optical connection that you make to the switches.
So try to understand your question. Basically, typically I think it depends on distance, right? You transmit data from A to B, make sure you are error free, right? You always error free. But optically will not degrade this. So opticals, right? So only increase the distance. That's the main thing. For example, if I have a location A to location B, right? It's for example like doing 10 meters, for example, right? Copper will work. But if I go to like 2 kilometers, the copper will run out the miles, right? You run out of gas. You have to use the optics, right? But electrical transfer to optical, and then opticals go to longer distance because fiber is low loss, right? And then you transmit back to electrical. So you have to maintain your signal integrity all the time.
Essentially, by going to optical, you keep the copper. If you use copper, the bidder will follow.
Yeah, you have to maintain your signal integrity. Yeah. For example, if I talk with somebody from LA, right? Talk with another from New York, right? They should be still able to read what you are talking about, right? The same quality. So that's kind of a thing.
But isn't there a limit by dispersion in the fiber?
Yeah, that's a limitation, but you have to crack that.
You gotta crack that.
Yeah, if you at DSP, right? You have to crack that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Getting around it.
Yeah. So it's Yeah, that's definitely limitations for sure. That's limitations.
You also have to amplify every certain.
Yeah, of course, the signal degraded, right? And then you amplify that, and also you have dispersion that you have to restore that. So because of magnification the dispersion, right? Yeah, so yeah, that's a lot of techniques there. So you see that there's different technology there. For example, in long haul, normally use coherent, right? Coherent technology. You improve your sensitivity, basically. Yeah, that's many years of research, right? So on that thing, and they right now they're starting to deploy that product. I think I'll give some ideas here, right? So what exactly what they're talking about from the module level, switch level, right? For example, from switch level, we just mentioned, right? We just said that like every 2 years, right? The switch will double, right? From like to 3.2T to 3.4T to 12.8T, right? And then this is the speed part, the switch density or called the throughput, right? So that if you buy switch, so that's the key parameters, right? This I can do like 25.6 T, right? So the other one can do 51 T, so right. So that's kind of key parameters, and also because the data centers, the major investment is the land, right? It's the space. So that's why your switch, how much the switch dimensions, right, make difference. For example, I want to do like 25.60, right, in one data box, right? So that's how your switch will be more efficient. So that's the kind of, we normally talk about 1 RU, right? 1 RU because the module is kind of have one of the like a definite dimensions, right? Within 1 RU, how many modules you can split in, right? That defines how the switch is efficient. So from the switch side, so the port is keep going up. For example, it's initially right, we're doing like 25T, right? And then go to 56 gig. And also we increase also the port, right? From 256 port and 512 port, right? So that's kind of a switch electrical interface. The module will connect switch to the fiber, right? Basically, the function for the module transceiver will translate, basically convert it the electric signal to optical signal, right? And then the optical signal starting to transmit in the fiber. So that kind of situation. So we're talking about. If you see the optics, right? Optics starting from 25T to 50T and also goes to like 112 gigabaud, right? That's what we're doing right now.
Do you think it's going to stop if you're going to run into can't go any faster or something?
Right, we are doing like we're doing this. We're doing saturation. Because the material, material limitation. For example, the behind this line is called the CMOS node, right? So we keep doing like we keep doing smaller, right? So basically, with 1 millimeter kind of switch size, right? You want to keep switch more gates, right? So what only thing, right? You have to make like your transistors, right? Very small, right? So right now we're talking about 3 nanometers. We're going to the atomic level, right? So that's kind of the limitation. So yeah, that's kind of limitation there. So
you have to be limited by things.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that people are going to 56 essentially 112 gigabaud. That's pretty amazing.
112 gigabaud. That's what we're doing right now. Yeah.
That's
so if you attend the OFC next year, that's the optics people starting to demo.
Yeah.
So we make plan for that.
It's been a while since I looked at PAM, right? Is there any future development to go more of a higher density PAM, like 5?
I think the industry, especially IEEE, right, have made a lot of discussions when they define from NRZ to PAM4, right? They're talking about all PAM 16, PAM 8, PAM 6, PAM 256. They do all the trade-off combinations, right? So currently, for at least from the IPV stand for next 2 to 3 years, we stick more with the PAM4. Because you talk about combinations, right? So I think a major problem is if you go to like higher orders, like PAM8, PAM16, right? So it becomes much more levels. So you have too much penalty, and you how much you gain, right? So the PAM4 right now is kind of balanced, right? So that's the reason. So if you talk about here, right? So this here shows the route map for the switch from modular, for example, 25.60, right? Now we're starting with 800 modules. If you do 51.50, right, you will need 1.60 modules, right? So somebody say, I can do CPO, I can make it better. That's why starting people say, oh, this is probably the CPO we're starting to get into the market with 51 switch. Of course, that's 100 T switch comes after that. So how people talk about if one RU not working, I put 2 RU, right? So I also 3.2 T transceivers. So this is probably the module for next 3 years. If you're talking about the Google, those guys, right? This is the module they're looking for. Right? I want to go to 1.6T. So,
Frank, I had a question about the modules. If you can go back to the last slide, I saw that like there was an XD8. So I'm not so familiar with that standard or what the OSFP-XD means. Would you be able to comment on that?
Okay, let's put this way. So currently we do the double density, right? So double density, those, for example, if we want to use 16 to 8, right? If I electrical at 16 and optically I do 8, so I can do this is called OSFP XD, right?
Okay.
Yes, yeah, that's basically that is the OSFP starting to make sure. So we still have enough pins.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
You double check the OSFP MSA. Okay.
Okay.
And I try to see, right, what is CPO, what is CPO, right? What CPO is talking about. So if you're checking the first one, for example, is below the for KD, right? KD modules, we have pluggables at one side, right? And the switch on the center of the switch, right? And the switch box. In that kind of situation, because the signal is low speed, so from the module to the switch, right? The distance can be longer, can tolerate for longer.
Is the switch the thing on the left-hand side? That's what you mean by switch?
Yeah, this is the switching. Right, CDR SerDes, right? We call the CDR SerDes normally in the switch side. So the CPO means co-package means is co-package optic with switch. The switch is it.
So
that's what it means.
That means, yeah, that's what I wanted to. So you're talking about having the switch die and the transceiver in the same package.
Yeah, that's exactly that's what the CPO called. Basically, currently, right, the module.
Yes, cool.
CPO is early stage. CPO is similar idea. It's on board, right? So, but right now people don't talk much about CPO, but you more like co-package. So, for that initially, right, I have module, I have SerDes inside, right, electronics inside. So, but if we go to another ASICs, right, also have SerDes CDRs. So that I think the idea is that I don't want the CDR SerDes inside of the module, right? That's the initial proposal.
Yeah,
right? You see the location here, right? So either SerDes or either sources, right? You always have either source somewhere from close to the fiber. But where you put your SerDes will define, right? How your related layout. But if you move your SerDes close to the ASIC, you can take out the module SerDes. Right? You see the difference, right? So this two, this last two basically is talking about the first one, right? You still have the SerDes. It's not to the ASIC, but you are not in one not too close, whatever they say. You still have that, right? So that's called typically from the module to the ASIC is called the very short range, like 10 inches. right? You put something like 4 inches or 2 inches or 4 inches. That's called NPO idea. So this is the OIF is working on this thing. And then if you say, this is still not enough, I want to completely take out the surface, then you will see they call it the pure CPO. Okay, so
can you give us a little bit time to understand this? Okay.
So this is that the ideas you have, right? So basically, I have switch ASIC. So my how to say is for example, my modulator RTIs, right? Where to the next the ASIC, right? So that's called the if for example my optical engine like silicon running, for example, right? Connect with the switch.
You essentially you're putting it close to the ASIC such that you can get rid of some of the CDR stuff.
That's the idea.
Reduce the power.
Right. Yes. If you put very close, that's the point.
Yeah.
If you see the other side, right? But if you still have some kind of a trace, for example, they call it here is XSR trace, right? Still have to need some kind of equalization. Think about what we're talking about here is like for example, this is 100 gig plan, right? So 53 gigabaud now. So the problems, right? All the materials attenuate very quickly. So normally, right, when you have higher speed, you see much more loss, right? That's the bandwidth, right? Bandwidth and stuff. So that's how that works here. So for example, what I mentioned earlier, right? So there are a lot of investment, right? A lot of companies starting to, you can name it, right? Like Intel doing, Broadcom is doing that, NVIDIA is doing that. So right, so and also like a lot of switch companies, right, starting doing the CPO. This is one example, for example, demo that this year was OCP. So for example, this is from Broadcom with the demo with radar, right? Including the 25.6 switch. You see that, right? They from here there, the switch is including like a 16 pluggable modules, like KIT112, also including 16 like MPO, like they call the CPO, the CPO modules there. So this is what they are doing right now. So for example, 25.6 T storage, and the demo of the mission, right? The CPO, the CPO.
Is MPO the pluggable version?
NPO means NPO is like mentioned here, right? So this means this is the NPO approach, right? This is the NPO approach. Basically, you still need studies. You cannot completely get rid of you still more something like between pluggable and CPO, right? If I do CPO, I completely take out the SerDes, right? The DSP inside the module. I using the ASIC, the DSP on the ASIC to drive the module, right? So that's drive the optics. That is called the CPO idea. But NPO means I use the weaker, right? I want to save some power. I don't want a very strong DSP. I use weaker CDRs to handle the trace.
So NPO and the CPO above are not pluggable, because you can't just take the optical out, right? I wanted, because your talk was about pluggable versus CPO.
Yeah. CPO means you always everything fixed.
Yeah.
Right? If one part fail, you have to throw everything, right? So that's the difference. The problem is, right? If optical fail, you throw away optics. Everything else is still right, still working. That's the fundamental part of the CPO with the pluggable.
Exactly. I mean, people who advocate pluggable tells us that the optics usually are the ones that fail. Why would you throw out the entire package if just the one transceiver fails?
I think it depends which argument. If you are, for example, if you are the CPO vendor, right? Yeah. So it's, you say, my main failure is not this. It's more like later. That's why I separate the later out, right? So that's why if you see that this one later, it's always separate, because somebody I think gave kind of calculation that 90% of, at least like 85%, for example, right? The failure from laser, then isolate the laser, right?
Oh, so the laser is still pluggable, is that what?
Yeah, the laser is still pluggable. If you see here, right?
Yeah.
If you see here, this is part is only the laser.
Okay.
So the laser, all the other stuff, right? Is packaged with the yeah. We package the ASIC. I think it's because I try to give the situation right now. For example, what's the benefits of the pluggables, right? So pluggables that we just mentioned, so it's flexible, right?
Yeah.
Flexible means, right? If I have modules, I can use, for example, same form factor. I can cover different distance, right? That means one way for flexible, right? I can do 2 kilometers, 10 kilometers, right? I change the module, that's enough. But if you do co-package, because everything fits together, so whatever your switch there will only fit one wavelength, right? One wavelength, one reach, right? So everything is fixed because it's combined in one unit. So that's one of the issues for the pluggable. So that's all. I think the pluggable definitely gives benefits for that. Another thing with pay-as-you-go. For example, the switch company and the module company can be different companies, right? So for example, if I still have the switch, but if I have another module increase the speed, I can still use all the switch, right? That means one pay-as-you-go. But if you are doing pluggables, pretty much you couple two together, right? So pluggable definitely decouple the two. So that is one of the things we talk about. We just mentioned, right? We talk about support different interfaces, and because the pluggable is easy to replace, right? And also, for example, backward compatibility. So I think pluggable can definitely is one of the key requirements. For example, if I do a 400G module, but I don't have 400G switch, but I can downgrade my 400G module to 100G. I can use 100G switch. Right, so that's kind of things is possible, and also potentially I think it's pluggable can make low power, but right now I think it's because silicon photonics become very popular, right? So people think, you put silicon photonics, if you have more channels, CPO can take advantage of the more channels. But I think the problem is if you do CPO, pretty much you start with silicon photonics, right? Silicon photonics, good or bad, you have to live with it. But for example, if I do pluggables, I don't have to start with the silicon photonics, right? If new materials comes in, it's better. I usually use new material. So that's kind of things I talking about here. So this is one thing from like Google or Research. From this, that's what they are talking about from their standpoint. So I cut paste some that slide showing so what is the pluggable can do, what is the CPO can do, right? So that's from their standpoint. So that's one thing to explain, right? Why there's so much investment goes to the CPO, but we don't see a lot of volume deployment for CPO yet, right? So that's definitely long-term goal. So at least from the Google, from Arista, right? Those kind of company standpoint, they think is at least, right? I have a solution using pluggable. I can do 51T. I can do 100T. So at least I have a solution pluggable work better there. So once the pluggable works, then push the CPO go to like longer, right? Go to longer future. Okay, so I give some idea here because we're talking about marketing, right? So marketing, for example, if it because the hyperscalers driving the market, for example, Microsoft, Facebook, so definitely they started to initiate these ideas, right? To initiate these ideas, ask the suppliers to work on that. So currently, I think to be honest with you, I think that Microsoft is also back off their plan for deployment. We don't see their deployment, right? Facebook just cut the teeth, right? So they supposed to do APO, so they are not doing right now. So Amazon, Google, they say clearly, so they don't have much interest for a CPO, so they starting doing like 800T, 1.6T, right? For pluggables, they think it's at least for 50T, right? So it's not not necessary. I think others, right? I think it's Ali and Pension, right? So I don't think they have plan yet, but network equipment is definitely one, the pluggables. So that's, yeah. So I think it's another thing is from ecosystem standpoint. Like Broadcom, right? They're doing CPOs. Pretty much you have to have all the components, right? You better do it. So that's why people talk about supply chain issue, right? Okay. So I think for the pluggables here, this is I borrowed one of the picture for talking about all the pluggables here. That means we have many kind of form factors. If you believe the CPO will eventually will be successful, so currently, right? So we see the CPO starting to get some market share, right? Some customers thinking, oh, maybe we can try this thing, right? So probably you will see probably next 5 years. That's probably you will see if the CPO will gain market share, right? So that kind of situation. So, but one thing from long-term standpoint, when the value go higher, so I think CPO look like it's we have the long-term advantages. So, but anyway, so by the pluggables, right, depends on the new materials, by breakthrough technologies. Pluggable so far, right? We're still in. We can do better. Okay. So for example, we can skip this. We can skip little bit this one. So this is the plans. For example, next 2 to 3 years, like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Meta will for their networks. So far, at least from 2025, 2026, they push out their CPO plan. If we recheck that 2 years later, right? 2 years before, they say, oh, for 800G, we started doing CPO. But you don't see that right now, right? 2 years later, they say, probably 800G is still okay. So that kind of situation right now. And another thing, right? Because the industry like it will slow down this year, people think about, I want CPO, but CPO cannot happen in a day, in a year, right? Because eventually, I'm not sure if you deal with silicon photonics, I mean, some tiny change will be like take 4 months, 5 months, right? That's definitely kind of a situation with the silicon photonics. Even for example, like companies like Intel, right? They have their own fab. They still take a long time. If you want to make any small change with silicon photonics, it takes time, right? So that's one of the things people argue. The CPO is already a lot of investment. So if you see here, right? So this is from Nawadia's ideas there. So I think the idea for CPO is still pretty good. One thing I can do CPO inside the platform. Basically, all the integration ideas I can use that one leverage with pluggable optical modules. This is one of the demonstrations from Navadia for like two weeks ago. So they are basically they use pluggable modules. They say, oh, since I work on servers, I don't need the long distance. I can tolerate the fiber distortion stuff, right? I can make that. I can take all the DSP. I still with pluggable modules. I do better, for example, better job for the integration. For example, they call the linear interface, right? I can still work, right? In that situation, I save the cost and the power consumption from studies.
So sorry, I'm a little bit confused. This is inside the server. So instead of you replace the electrical transmission with some sort of optical, is that what you're talking about?
Okay, let's do this way. Normal way, right? We put the pluggable modules. Right? This is the switch, right? This is normally 32 ports, right? 32 ports, 36 ports. You plug it into the standard object module. The standard object module means I have a DSP inside, right? If you talk about this one, right? 800G, right? I have DSP, I have optics inside everything, right? But instead of doing that way, I take out the DSP, right? I only do like linear interface. I'm using the ASIC, the DSP from the ASIC switch to drive the distance, right?
Equalization inside the optic, in the switch to
right. Yeah, that's what it means. Yeah, they call it more like people call it the linear interface. Yeah, in that situation, you tolerate a little bit the fiber because, for example, I used to run like 3 kilometers. I don't want to do 3 kilometers, right? I do like very short, right? So that's kind of a things people talking. Here another way is talking about this. For example, when you do the CPOs, right, major things, right, deal with silicon photonics, right, you have also electronics there, so they have a lot of like integration, like optical integration kind of improvements. But I can use the same idea. I goes to the optical modules, right? I think yeah. So that's the people talking about. For example, this is one way for new materials, right? For example, if I want to go to higher bandwidth, silicon photonics is kind of limited. Have some kind of limitations, right? Because of silicon material. So this is one which shows the industry starting to look at new materials, right? Like thin film, like lithium niobate. This is one example for how to reduce power with the new materials. If you check the OFC papers, ECOP papers, there's a lot of the papers focused on new material. Basically, currently the EML base or silicon photonics base, right? You pretty much like your bandwidth like goes to like 50 gigahertz, right? Goes to 70 gigahertz, right? Kind of maximum. But if you go to new materials, they can easily go to like 100 gigahertz bandwidth, right? For example, it's also another one called the video called the bottom like titanate something. It's a new material, right? It's more like lithium niobate. This one shows one example. For example, if I do 7 nanometer DFB for 800 DI module, if I use silicon photonics, I'm pretty much currently doing 16 watts. But the new materials with lithium niobate, it's basically I reduce the swing, right? Because my optical if coefficient is higher, so I have better nonlinearities. So I don't need the higher swing, right? Your power will go low, right? So that's how that you see like 20% down because of new materials. That is the good part of it. If you do pluggables, right? You can leverage whatever the best technology available. So that's the, and also of course, right? If you put the 5 nanometer DSPs, you can further reduction from the DSP side.
So the material that you're using there is lithium.
Lithium niobate. When we do long haul Mach standards, right? Typically it's lithium niobate. It's they call it barcode lithium niobate. Currently, if you do make thin films, right? You can make it more compact. You can put inside the module.
Earlier, you talked about the benefit of CPO is that you can reduce a couple of CDR essentially conversion, the interface. The how much power is that?
I will sometimes show you something.
Oh,
I have something. Another thing, one for integration is right. Talking about, for example, standard PCBs, right? You have driver TIAs, right? DFBs on one substrate. You can use different levels, right? So you can add the switch and the driver TIAs, right? We call 2.5D integration. The full integration, right? You put a flip chip, right? You put a flip chip. You can put your driver TIAs on top of the DSPs. So that's kind of a technology right now is doing a lot combined with the CPO. Okay, so to answer first of all, I need to answer your question for how much the powers you see, right? So we're talking about. Let's answer that question first. For example, here shows right. This is typically you see the module, right? How much power from SerDes. The SerDes DSP side, you take out, you pretty much save 50%.
Wow.
Okay. Okay, so let's go back to what we have.
So Frank, it's actually 8 p.m. I know you still have a lot of slides to go through.
What time right now?
It's 8.
Okay. So I'll go over very quickly. So it's 8 o'clock now, right?
Yeah, we have a follow-up talk.
Yeah. Okay. I do very quick, because the rest one is very standard, right? I did not realize the time. Okay, 8 o'clock now. Let's spend 10 minutes to finish this, okay? So for the wireless standpoint, right? From wireless fronthaul, so currently is 10G, 25G. 25G is mainly the limited, right? It's a volume right now. So you connect it with normally your antenna with the central office, right? So that is 25G. So next one, people talk about the 50G. Okay, I'm talking about the new optics there. So also because when you do antennas, right, you have normally you have 3 modules cover like 380 degrees, right? 3 modules in the antenna, 3 modules in the central office, 6 modules. So that's why people started doing tunable laser. If I have tunable laser, I use one part, right? I don't have a lot of part numbers. So that's what I'm trying to say here. We can bypass this. Another one for the PON area. For the PON area, I think it's if you talk about 20 years ago, right? That's EFON, GFON, right? It's 1G. So currently, I think it's since last 2 years ago, right? The 10G started taking off, right? So people talk about XDF PON. But currently, people, for example, the next generation, people are trying to buy the 50G PON, right? So that is the optics there for the access area. So we can bypass this. So I think for another things for I put here. Other things for the transport area, right? If you want to connect base station to base stations, right? Previously, right, use 4x25G LR4. So this is KRT28. But if you go to a simplified module, right? Because the power for KRT28 is 4.5 watts. If my speed goes up, I do optically, right? I use one laser, right? I can save power there. I can go to 3.5 watts, 3 to 3.5 watts. But in the future, right, I do electrically 100G in and 1G comes out. I can do limited 2 watts, right? For example, especially for the fronthaul area, because if you have modules in the antenna, right? Because antenna normally take care by batteries, so your power limitation is very strict, so very stringent. So, okay, so that's the thing for 400G, right? We're talking about more like for example. Currently, we're talking about 400G DR4 module, FR4 modules, right? We have 8 lines in, like 4 lines out with 4 wavelengths, right? And I think people in the future talk about I have 4 lines in and 4 lines out, right? So that's kind of from KRTB to KRTB 112. So we will see like from like 10 watts to 6 watts. Another thing I want to mention here for transport, so for 800G, right? So currently, I think most companies are using 1.60, 800G, right? So you have different fiber distance, right? You normally cover, for example, if I want to 80 kilometers, I have to go to coherent, right? So that's why the people talk about coherent light. Coherent light means I using the long haul coherent ideas. I run like 80 kilometers. So I still cut down, right, the power compared with the long hauls. Okay, so the 800G is the same thing. So this is module form factors. One thing I want to mention here for 800G, because we started doing 200G per lambda. 200G per lambda means I'm doing 200G gigabit per second. My baud rate is 100G. Right, so that's kind of thing. So for example, we spend a lot of efforts from Photonics, right? We try to enable the 10 kilometers using 4x20, right? So that's called LR4. So I think that's something we're working on here. So I think one thing I want to say here, I think it's answer also the question here. So for example, for quantity right now, if we're doing like almost like the third generation, we're talking about if you talk about here, right, 8 watts right now for the 400G module. But that's based on 7 nanometer DSP. If we go to 800G module, people talk about the second generation using 5 nanometer DSP, right? The power more like 13 to 14 watts using standard EML. But if you're using thin film lithium niobate, probably you can go to like 11 to 12 watts. And also, right, for the 800G, if you start doing like PIC DD 800G using 4x200G, right? So if you do you migrate from 8x100G and goes to like 4x200G, you reduce half the later. So you can see a further reduction. You can go to 11 watts. And beyond, right? If we want to go to like 300 DSPs, then it goes to like 8x200G, right? So then you see a further reduction for 22 watts. So that's how the vibration of the vibration for the you increase the bandwidth and reduce the basically improve the energy efficiency. Okay, so I think that's pretty much. I think it's pretty covers what I can talk about the optics, new optics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. We have some time for questions. Any questions online or from the audience here? Let me see if you have any questions online.
I have a question about your power. If you look at the switch is 50T. 50T, you had a number earlier about 18 joule per bit.
I'll show you that one.
Yeah. If I do a quick calculation, that tells me that switch is going to consume something like 1,000 watts.
Yeah, switch is already there. You cannot avoid that.
Is that, but when you package that your optics with the switch, how do you handle the thermal? Because optics are very sensitive.
That's one of the issue people complaining the CPO, because think about it, the switch more like close to 2 centimeters, right? 2 centimeters, and then you connect with all the optics surrounded, right? Yeah. Probably like in 2 centimeters, you handle like 500 watts. Yeah. That's why people talk about the liquid cooling.
Yeah,
you see, we call it liquid cooling everything, right? Air cooling is definitely an issue. So thermal management for CPO is a big issue.
Yeah, I mean the thermal density is we do liquid cooling, but with that such density liquid cooling, you have to do some fancy liquid cooling.
Yeah, that's exactly the switch companies investigating.
And so the assumption of your CPO is you're going to put optics as close to this ASIC, hot ASIC as possible, so you don't have to drive a long distance, so you can save power on the.
From the fan, yeah. This is one of the arguments. So pluggable, because they call it disaggregation. Yeah. Disaggregation means I don't put everything in one location. I separate those. Yeah, that's one of the things is the argument there. So basically, people say, so I save power from DIP, but I increase power from my cooling system, right? So that but currently I think it's some companies think that's the benefit for CPO is not there yet.
Yeah, especially your laser chip, and that will be sensitive to temperature, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I think for CPO, less issue because normally, right, most companies put the laser outside. Yeah. But still, like Intel, those kind of companies, they have internal laser. The laser is also with the package. Yeah. So it's that's something I put something here also. For example, the density limitation here, right? So you need a special cooling systems. And also your limitation, right? Because you always put the surroundings, they say you don't have that many rooms because this is normally like 2 centimeters, right? You don't have to put a lot of optics. That's also limitation. Yeah.
Okay, standardization requirements. Is there any next 5 to 10 years when the first generation of CPO enters the market? I mean, is there any requirements for standardizing?
Let's put this way: the standard takes time, right? The standard takes time. So currently, because it's very hard to jump, right? So that's why OIF make one like close to pluggable and also close to CPO, something in between. That's called NPO. right? So that, yeah, that's kind of the standard right now. So it's actually it's OIP doing this. Yeah, currently this one CPO. I think this part of the CPO is if you want to really like basically like you have to have everything, right? So you cannot count on Broadcom to do this kind of a CPO package. That's why Broadcom say, I have everything, I will do everything, right? So that's why the issue for we call the supply chain problem. For example, if I'm the user, right? I want looking for suppliers. I can only one supplier, right? That's supply chain issue. Yeah. So I think this is currently because they're looking for ecosystems. Because when you do standard, it means you have many companies want to work on that, right? You're looking for ecosystems. That's another problem with CPO. You have better, you better control everything. Otherwise, your cost will be crazy, right? Yeah. So I think that's pretty much. I think a good discussion. So this, I think this topic will probably last next 3 years. So. Yeah.
A lot of research, a lot of issues. So
yeah.
make this realizable.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And, want to present you with the outstanding speaker certificate from Chang. Okay, and Chang, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
All right, give me some real good big smile. Excellent, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, nice.
All right, so we're gonna try to write this up for the newsletter. So thank you for the folks who joined us online. Any comments from anybody? But okay, well, thank you so much. I think this will conclude our talk, and just wanted to let you guys bring up awareness for future events. So let me bring that up. So again, you know, if you enjoyed this talk, there's plenty of other opportunities for you to learn more about the optical comm. And there's actually a course that you can sign up for, online course, that's going to be in spring, sorry for the typo, spring 2023. And it's a fiber optics communications class that's being taught by Professor Ramesh at Cal State Northridge, CSN. So you can go to their online catalog and sign up for that class. And Professor Ramesh is a very active with the IEEE, and so you probably have seen his name before if you are involved in IEEE activities. We also have webinars that's available if you want to check them out on aerospace, electronics society, as well as computer society. I think in December is a low time for the meetings, right? So, but starting next year, I think we'll have more in-person hybrid meetings. So stay tuned and hope you guys continue to join us in the future. All right, so that's it.
Thank you.